Welcome to another More Than Walking video podcast discussion, where we seek to encourage dialogue on a variety of topics with the unique perspectives of people with spinal cord injuries and other disabilities. It is our goal for these conversations to make us think critically and for us to all leave with a newfound sense of belonging in a world where we have more things in common than we do different. Tonight's topic is disabled elephants in the room, and I'm your host, Corey Feasley, an aspiring hip-hop artist here in the state of Connecticut. I'm also a C4, C5 quadriplegic. I sustained my injury because of a diving accident in June of 2005. And I'm very happy to be here with all of you this evening. And so just going to open up with a statement before you guys briefly introduce yourselves, because, I think we have a lot to try to discuss and cover, and I really want to get everybody's thoughts and ideas and opinions, because it really matters to not just us, but also those who will view this podcast. So no one goes about their daily life expecting to become disabled, and yet we all will. When we do, we often lose our mobility, and the system we came to take for granted no longer works. Still, we don't have the laws we need to protect the rights of people with disabilities to participate fully in society. Whether you acquire or are born with a disability, you'll notice that everything and place isn't necessarily accessible. You may not be eligible for certain services, leading to feeling alone as you fight for your basic needs to be met. Advocacy is vital. Unfortunately, disability rights are in constant flux, and we need to constantly protect them. Let's face it, no one wants to think about the large creature huddled in the corner, but the bigger question is, how did it get in the room in the first place? We have to join the herd sooner or later. And with that, I'd like everybody to just tell me where you calling in from, your name and your level of injury.
I'm Harley Draven. I am a C7 incomplete quadriplegic. I had a diving accident on my 19th birthday in 1994, and I'm from Bellingham, Washington.
I am Tahira Johnson. I am a C4, C5 incomplete. I received my injury playing roller derby in Chicago, which is where I'm from, and I now live in Oklahoma City.
Awesome. I'm Jonathan Sigworth. I'm a C7 complete quadriplegic, fell off the cliff in India when I was 19, and I am in Stratford, Connecticut.
I am Brendan Patterson. I am a C6, C7 complete. I fell asleep at the wheel in 2017 and had a motor vehicle rollover where I was partially ejected. Oh, and I'm from Denver, Colorado. Sorry.
My name's Jason Thurston. I live in the Adirondack Mountains of upstate New York. I had a diving accident at the age of 31 in 2004, and I'm a C6 incomplete.
I'm Luna. I am in the lower back, paralyzed due to spinal fusion. Was born with caudal regression syndrome. I'm currently in Georgia, but I am from Moscow, Russia.
Awesome. Welcome to the More Than Walking podcast. Luna, we look forward to your feedback on what we're going to be talking about tonight. And again, I'm just very glad that everyone's able to make it, and we're going to have a really lively discussion. So in preparing for this, I was just blown away by not only the things that you kind of already know as you become disabled or as you deal with your disability, but by the kind of commonality that we share in the exchanges that we have with people who are able-bodied, right? So I watched an interview today, and it was about the inequality in cancer care for people with disabilities. This is an interview done by the Lancet Oncology, and they talked to a doctor named Dr. Lisa Lazzoni, and she has multiple sclerosis. She talked about when she was attending medical school in Harvard, and the thing that she was looking to do was have an internship, and she knew that she couldn't do it full time. So all she was asking for is if she could do it part-time due to her disability. It doesn't seem like an unreasonable request, as much of the things that we do and what we need are simply extensions of our bodies, right? And so as she's talking to this gentleman who happened to be the CEO of a major academic center, he said to her, too many doctors in the country to train handicapped physicians. So if some are left behind, so be it. I was completely blown away by that statement as a person with a disability. And I can only imagine what she was going through when she was talking to him and thinking probably to herself, we are in the business of helping people with disabilities, acquired disabilities, different diseases, et cetera. And so it had me, thinking a lot about advocacy, what we need to do, what we need to say, and how do we approach it. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is how we feel invisible, though we are the most noticeable individuals inside of any particular venue or vicinity. So in the spinal cord community, we constantly make decisions between wants and needs. We want an ample amount of supplies to aid in our bladder care, but may need to settle by reusing catheters, which may be unsterile, and could lead to bladder infections. And in case you didn't notice, many of us are unable to walk, but to substitute for that, we need the right wheelchair so we can be mobile in our communities and abroad. Since your injury, how long and how difficult has it been to access medication, receive quality rehabilitation services, and being able to purchase durable medical equipment through insurance? And have you experienced any delays, denials that impacted your SCI significantly? And Harley, I would love for you to take that.
It's amazing that we actually are talking about this, because it's been 2008, 2009 was when it happened. My wheelchair broke down, and it's time to get a new chair anyway. So I started the process of getting one. And somewhere along the line, somebody took too long to do something, so we had to start the process over. Well, I'm bedridden for 3 weeks already, and we got to start the process over. This is ridiculous. And my friends, they all pitched in and found a wheelchair at a pawn shop and got that for me. And it took almost a year for me to get a new wheelchair. So I would have been on bed rest for a whole year, all because of somebody not stepping up and being on top of things. And so I'm so grateful for my friends all pitching in. It was amazing. The gentleman that owned the pawn shop, he was selling the wheelchair for one price. When he found out my situation, he dropped it by almost 80% on cost. And it's scary out there what we take. And I know for me, I have to order medical supplies every month, and sometimes they don't have them in stock, so those are delayed, and then I got to go back through and count my inventory and go, oh my gosh, do I have enough to make this? And I don't use catheters. I just change my underoos for every 4 to 8 hours, depending on what I drink, how much I drink, and what type of day I'm having. So I got to count to make sure I got enough butt covers to keep me going until those supplies come in, or bed pads. It's a really kind of almost scary thing to have to constantly be on top of because of somebody else that we are stuck relying on.
I would, Jason, I'm gonna pitch it to you next. But how long did it take for you to have to figure out that system for yourself?
Goodness. Well, in the beginning, I had a lot of help because I had caregivers and stuff. But once I was actually completely, I'd say about, even with the caregivers, it took us about 5 years to get things situated. And even when I relocate, because I've lived in 4 different states, every time I move, I have to make sure, can I get a doctor that understands me? Can I get my supplies in this location? Are they delivered here and stuff like that? I mean, and like right now, I'm looking at moving out of state again. And so I'm having to go down the list. Is there a medical center? Can my supplies get there? And then also I have to move to where there's bus service. I can't move to where I'd really like to move, which is in the country around nobody.
Wow.
There's just a whole inventory that I have to go through in order just to move somewhere.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, it's a struggle. Jason, how about yourself?
For me, it comes down to Medicare and Medicaid. After 2 years on Social Security, I don't know, it's probably the same for you guys. You qualify for Medicare, and they pay 80%, and so you're stuck with that other 20% unless you have Medicaid. And the only way I can get Medicaid is either I have what they call a spend down. In New York State, I don't know if it sounds really familiar. It's kind of like a deductible where I have to pay the county the difference between the Medicaid threshold and what I receive for Social Security disability, which is like $400 a month in order to get Medicaid, which covers the rest of everything else that I need. Fortunately, they have a program called Medicaid Buy-In, where if I work at least 10 hours a week for 6 months out of 12 in a year, then I automatically qualify for Medicaid. And that's the only way that I've been able to get the supplies and the extra 20%. I mean, this wheelchair that I just got was $13,000, and if I had to pay 20% of that, I don't know where it would come from. So it's playing that insurance game that, and then there's the other thing with I have a colostomy bag, and between that and catheters, I can get them delivered to my house. But if I have somebody coming into the house, whether it's a public health nurse or any kind of caregiver, which I haven't had in a really long time, but if I did, then I wouldn't qualify for those automatic supplies. I'd have to go through the county. I wouldn't be able to get exactly what I wanted. So it's just a jumping through hoops all the time, trying to figure out how to balance it all.
Yeah, it's definitely troubling to hear. How about yourself?
Okay, there we are. Now, I also I have Medicare, Medicaid, and when I was first injured, I had a little you need to have under $2,000 in savings in order to qualify for Medicaid. So, and I had like 15 grand, which I was living in Chicago with no income, so it took no time to get through $13,000. But then I got Medicaid and eventually Medicare. But one thing is I was injured in Chicago and lived there and then moved to Oklahoma. So I got a lot of things in Chicago that I just didn't realize you don't get in a lot of places. The care was a lot better than there. And it's funny, I just went to a meeting because of work. I went to a brain injury support group meeting, and they're in much the same place where you're basically at the mercy of what state you're injured in and your health insurance as to what kind of care that you get. And in Chicago, it took me about a year, but with a good PT, I could walk on a platform walker, and I lost that coming to Oklahoma because I here with Medicaid, Medicare, you get 15 sessions a year for PT and OT each.
Wow.
And there I was getting 3-4 days a week of PT, OT, and aqua. I could walk in the pool by myself, well, at least with my stronger arm. I could just walk around the pool while the PT watched me, and I lost all of that by coming to Oklahoma and just not getting any of that care.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's tough. It
Yeah.
sounds like it just needs to be really more universal. Brandon, how about yourself?
So I kind of got, we were just talking about, it really depends on what state you get injured in. And Colorado is very, very great when it comes to their Medicaid. Like, I hear horror stories about waiting for wheelchairs and waiting for supplies. And when I was injured, I was on Medicaid anyway. So, like, I pretty much have not had to pay really a dime for anything in almost 6 years. I mean, I just got a new wheelchair as well. I hit my 5-year mark, and like I got the new standing frame F5 that was like 38 grand. I didn't have to pay a penny. Like, I mean, I hear these stories, and I'm blown away with, honestly, kind of how lucky I am, and I feel bad for saying it, you know what I mean? Because I mean, my supplies, like, I've never had really like a lapse in supply chains. Like, I've really kind of lucked out, and I just learned about the Medicare thing after 2 years of being on SSDI, that you qualify for the Medicare. So that's something I'm going to be looking into, just kind of to bolster, just in case, like. But no, luckily I've kind of lucked out, unfortunately. For
Definitely. I see. Luna, how about yourself? Especially, you said that you were from Russia. How has it been for you, like, in terms of trying to get the things that you need?
So the way I actually came in contact with John was because I needed help pushing my wheelchair through my insurance. Something that Harley said that I could relate to is restarting that process. I have now been working on getting a wheelchair for 2.5 years. I try for a year, the year ends, I have to restart, the year ends, and I'm now at my third attempt. This time, the holdup is that my insurance does not want to cover a titanium frame. They only want to cover aluminum, which is a several pound difference, of course. And for me, with my spinal injuries, those several pounds, like even 5, genuinely make that much more of a difference. I'm pretty sure so many of us can relate to that. And then just kind of since we veered over to Medicare, Medicaid for a second, I was adopted, and my adoption happened when I was 16, right at the point where it was about to be cut off because after 17, you can no longer be adopted, apparently. And due to that adoption, I got a green card. However, I didn't get my citizenship before the age of 18. So due to that, my mother's work credits did not apply to my disability. So instead of my disability being $3,200 a month, it is $600 a month. And there's nothing I can do to have my mother's work credits to apply because I'm now an adult and I didn't get my disability before the age of 18.
Wow.
So I have to survive on $600 a month. I do pay for private insurance because Medicare and Medicaid does not cover all of my specialists that I need.
Right.
I'm going through kidney failure as well right now. So it's just Medicare and Medicaid isn't going to cover everything that I need just in general. So I do supplement that with private insurance, which is $400 a month. So that's most of my disability.
Wow. Well, we were definitely hoping that you will fare well when it comes down to dealing with your kidney. That's a very serious thing that you're enduring, and we definitely hope you get the resources you need. John, how about yourself?
I am only on private insurance, although I was on, I guess in Connecticut we have Husky, which I think is like the state Medicaid for a short period of time. So I haven't had to deal with those issues because I've been able to work pretty much since I graduated college. But in terms of like the delays and things like that, I wanted to repair a very simple thing on my wheelchair, like the bearings on the wheels, which are like $5, right? I mean, you could go and order them yourself and take it to a bike shop and install it. But I tried to go through my wheelchair repair company, and I was really astonished. It took a month for them to come out for the first time to take a look at my chair because there were some other problems too. And they didn't have the right pieces. And then they came out another time, like probably 2 or 3 months later. And instead of having the correct pieces to change out this little thing, they wanted to replace my entire wheel, which costs $2,000. Like the Spinergy lightweight fiber, what is it? Carbon fiber. There we go. Carbon fiber wheel set, $2,000, instead of replacing the $5 part. And it's because the two main wheelchair repair companies are private equity companies. They're national. Their focus is on growth, and as a result, their customer service and repair times have cut down, and we all have to deal with them because of our insurance. And people don't even know how to change tires anymore. So instead of changing a flat tire, they're replacing the $2,000 wheel. And we're all wondering why things are so hard to get and why budgets are, not being expanded for people with disabilities, is because the whole system is just really super wasteful.
Yeah, definitely. I can agree with that. It's just, everybody is having different experiences, but it's all kind of like very similar, whether you're finding a delay in supplies or you're having an issue repairing simple parts or you have stipulations. It's definitely a disabled circus of sorts, and many of us are jumping through hoops in order to get those things that are necessary, especially from these government-sponsored programs like a Medicaid or a Medicare. But I want to move on to question number 2 as it pertains, like, Harley, you mentioned about, you don't sell cath, you use depends, if you will, to be able to change. You have to keep an inventory. And one of the dangers with us as disable people is the incontinence of our bladder. We have to manage our bowels on a day in and day out, and everybody does that differently. So I want to just hear from Tahira first. What are some methods that you use to help with combating disease? Because currently there's only 64 new drugs that are being developed worldwide to deal with the resistance to antibiotics and antimicrobial prescription drugs. And there's only a few companies that are actually dealing with this, and it makes it really hard for us to have access to it. So Tahira, what are some of the things you do to try to protect yourself from becoming like antibiotic resistant?
I don't know, like what type of, I don't think I take antibiotics very often. Would that be for like a UTI or things like that?
Yes.
So that happens to me occasionally. I think my diet may have helped that. Now that I work part-time for the state, I buy like all organic, and I spend $60-$70 a week on groceries just for myself.
Wow.
And I think that's helped actually. And I do get less when I went to the suprapubic catheter. I used to get them more often, and also having it changed every 2 to 3 weeks instead of once a month, that helped. So, but other than that, I will get a UTI every once in a while. I think that's so I haven't had a personal issue with as far as new antibiotics coming out.
Okay. Harley, how do you deal with it?
I'm real quick, going back to everybody talking about insurance and supplies and all that. I recently discovered a care credit card. So whatever insurance doesn't cover, I use the care credit, and it covers like glasses. It even pays for my vet bills for my service dog, and it's amazing.
Who supplies that?
It's just you go through Synchrony Bank. Synchrony Bank. It's an online thing, and you get a credit card and you name your limit. When I first got it, I asked for a $2,000 limit, and I had some dental stuff come up that would go slightly over that $2,000 limit. So I bumped my credit limit up to $2,500.
Okay, nice. How about
So that's called,
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
sorry, Care Credit Card
Yeah,
through Synchrony Bank.
yeah.
I think I know someone who could probably benefit from that. And how much does it cost you? Is there like an extra? Okay, so and how does it benefit you? Like, what do they?
Since Medicare and Medicaid doesn't cover dental,
Mhm.
I'm able to use it for my dental to get all my teeth cleaned, fillings. Because up here in the state of Washington, the only dental you can get as an adult pretty much is an extraction.
Right, same in Oklahoma is the only thing that's covered.
Yeah.
And where are you again?
I'm in the state of Washington.
I would think Washington would have a bit more, but it sounds about the same for that.
It sucks up here. And
Right.
I said it nicely.
Right. Well, Oklahoma, that's putting it very nicely. But I'm just wondering, is there so there's a income limit? Like you have to be Medicaid eligible?
I don't know exactly how it works. I know for me, you got to have your income and then like a decent credit score. I know my credit score was like right around 630 when I got mine.
Mm.
So, I mean, I was already trying to start improving my credit, and that's what, I mean, I was approved instantly, and it was my dentist that offered it to me. She's like, "Did you ever hear about this?" And I'm like,
Wow.
"No."
You know
Okay,
what?
so income and credit, like verification is what they
Yeah.
do. Okay, thank you.
You're
You
welcome.
know what? If you could maybe throw a link in the chat that we can, share amongst everybody else if they want to be able to take advantage of that type of program. But that's really cool. I just want to move on to Jason. What are some of the things you do to prevent disease, and how do you handle that?
I haven't had a lot of problems recently. I used to use condom catheters, the external catheters, and because that was always overflow, I never fully emptied my bladder. So I had chronic UTIs. As a matter of fact, I was on a low dose antibiotic for a while, which really wreaked havoc on my digestive system and caused a whole bunch more problems. But the thing that saved me is Botox treatment on my bladders.
Yeah.
And ever since I've gotten that, I've been able to retain. I haven't had any accidents. And as far as UTIs go, I straight cath with a new catheter every time, and don't really have any problems with that. I do know people who have had MRSA and things like that that you never get rid of, and all of a sudden you know, when you go in the hospital, they got to be real careful and suit up and treat you. Yeah. So I've been real lucky not to end up with any of that.
Awesome. John, I know that you have a demonstration video on exactly what you use, but tell us like how do you try to like deal with it?
Well, yeah, I have. You mean about my medical supplies?
Yeah, just how your medical supplies, but what do you do also? Because that's kind of part of it, right? Like how you sterilize it, the type that you may use to help you prevent from contracting any kind of disease.
Yeah, so I get UTIs occasionally. I guess that's the most common thing. Had a scare with a bed sore on my heel that turned out not to be, but that was good. I mean, the trick is, I straight cath and then I use a condom catheter for the rest of the day and night. I just straight cath once a day. And that's just the system that's worked for me because my bladder meds never really worked. And I wasn't too keen on super pube catheters and getting holes punched in my belly. But the thing I have to do to prevent like kidney damage and stuff like that is get a ultrasound of my kidneys every year to make sure that they're fine. But otherwise, yeah, using new catheters, sterilizing with 70% alcohol. I used to reuse catheters actually back in the very beginning, and I didn't get UTIs for a long time. But then the first time, and I had to use antibiotics, it killed all the resistance, like the resistance my bladder had to infection. And I started getting UTIs frequently. But the other thing is, when I do get a UTI or the first symptoms, I just start drinking lots of water and start taking a antibiotic called menthylamine, which is a great essentially not a probiotic. What's it called?
I would liken it to like a detergent for the bladder.
Yeah, it's like it mixes with vitamin C and essentially prevents bacteria from clinging to the walls of your bladder. So I don't have to take it all the time. Right. It's just when I feel like I'm about to get an infection, I start taking it. But you can also take it on a regular basis, and that doesn't contribute to antibiotic resistance. But yeah, the magic is the key is just stay out of the hospital.
as long as you kind of got that at the forefront of your mind, do whatever it takes. Brandon, how do you manage when it comes down to how you straight cath and things of that nature?
So I started my journey with the suprapubic right away, and my first couple years, I was always just my body couldn't acclimate. It had a trouble adjusting to the new normal, and I had I think my first year of injury, I had 13 UTIs. My second year, I had like 9 or 10. I don't even know if I really ever got rid of my UTI. It just persisted, and then there was, bladder infections, then there was blood infection, then there was a kidney infection. So I really had a hard time when I first started with it, and then I started using a silver line catheter was one of my main things. I get my catheter changed every 2 weeks, pretty religiously now. I take methenamine every day, along with an oxybutynin on top of it, a very, very low dose for bladder spasms to reduce on that. And I also make sure that I irrigate my bladder every day. And once we kind of got that down, luckily now, knock on wood, knock on whatever, I actually haven't had a UTI in actually over 2 years now. And right when I can feel it coming on, like I'll have a night where I'll have just a disgustingly nasty high fever. And I know right when I get that fever, I've got something coming on. I make sure to flush my bladder out right away. I drink as much water and vitamin C as I can. And generally I've been able to flush it out before it gets too bad. So luckily I've kind of got my routine down when it comes to that now.
You know what? It's so cool hearing everybody's, different, we're very methodical about the approach, right? And I like what you said because I'm in a similar position as you. Now, I did not go the suprapubic catheter route because it did not. I didn't want that to be something that I have to kind of deal with, like changing in that regard. But one of the issues I ran into was even having a indwelling Foley would cause my bladder to spasm uncontrollably. And if I had the suprapubic, I might be draining constantly, preventing UTIs, but then I have to deal with the uncontrollable spasticity. And it doesn't matter about how much baclofen that you may be on or oxybutin that you may be taking when it comes down to something foreign in your body. But like John, John doesn't take it regularly, but I take methylamine hypochlorite, ascorbic acid as well, cranberry tabs, 800 milligram. Cranberry is a good source for acidity so that the bacteria will not grow. And above all things, it's about your water intake. If there's anything that you're going to use to weaponize against any antimicrobials or dealing with not having to take so much antibiotics, is definitely about water intake. And, it sounds like kind of like an Alcoholic Anonymous statement, but I haven't had a UTI in 4 years, just simply because I drink a ton of water, probably a liter a day. I void and I cath intermittently 3 times to 4 times a day, and it has kept me safe. And I think that is important because I got to the point where the bacteria that would be growing would be so resistant. So your typical Cipro, Bactrim, these things would not work. And now you have to go the IV antibiotic route, which is a last resort. And you don't want to get so resistant that you're stuck in the hospital with a PICC line and you have to go through a 7-day regimen. And Brandon, I want to shift gears a little bit and pass it back to you. So access to information is something that the public takes for granted. We don't even think twice. If there's something that pops up in our mind, we quickly whip out our mobile devices and log onto the computer. We find the preferred search engine and we just type away. The gathering of this knowledge doesn't come cheap, and somebody is behind the machine we use, and whether we are critical or how much we, kind of deal with it. How do you, with the access to information, how has it helped you deal with your spinal cord injury?
Oh, that's a great question. That's kind of a double-edged sword for me because I grew up in a world before the internet, you know what I mean? I'm kind of very much an old school person, so I still sometimes like to get an encyclopedia and I go that route because you never know what you're going to get when you're looking at Google. You know what I mean? I've looked up stuff for a spinal cord injury on Google, and apparently, I've got 8 different things that I know I don't have. You know what I mean? Because I've got a symptom that presents as something else, and it's just for me though. Personally, I just have, after 6 years now of injury, I just know how to listen to my body now. I know enough about me, okay, like I said, especially with the UTI. I know if I'm just laying in bed and I suddenly get a fever, I know the simple things. Okay, you check bladder first, then you check bowel, and then you check skin. You know what I mean? I don't need to look at Google oh my God, I have a fever and I'm short of breath. I have some rare form of, yellow fever, even though I've never, or I've got West Nile or whatever the case may be, Google tells you. I don't have those things. I know how to listen to my body and go down the simple checklist for AD stuff, as a spinal cord injury patient. Personally, I try to stay off technology when it's looking up stuff for a spinal cord injury, other than I do like to get on things and look up what's the new research and what they're kind of breaking ground on for the new technologies and stuff like that. But other than that, I just got to listen to myself.
I hear you. And I just want to provide a little context to this question. This is about SCI model systems, and they're very essential to understanding what our community goes through, because not only do they provide statistical data when it comes down to SCI, but they're also what helps with research and rehab facilities, and the problem that we're having currently within Congress and what have you is a lot of these programs are underfunded. I forgot how many model systems there are, but if you break down the cost that is allotted to them, it only comes down to like about $500,000, actually less than $500,000 that goes to each of these model systems. And some of these model systems are the largest in the world, in fact. So they globally are relied to the 1 billion individuals who deal with a disability, and also, those of us who have more critical and acute injuries. But, I want to pitch this over to Harley. How has statistical data improved your quality of life and understanding your diagnosis?
Well, I'm kind of like Brandon. I'm very old school, and I was before all the internet and all that. But for me, it's whenever I have an issue, my very first thing is what's the holistic and all natural remedy to anything. And for me, I was raised with a very hands-on thing. So if I need a resource, I go out into my community and I find those resources. And then I get pamphlets, brochures, any literature from that agency and any agency about, similar to them. And then I've got a file cabinet drawer full of community resources that are all done on paper because
Wow.
I don't trust the internet. You don't always get the correct answers. You don't always get the direction you need or the assistance you need. And so I do all I can by getting out of it also gets me out of the house, but for if I need to know about, getting rid of a bladder infection or something, I drink water, but I also boil clove and cinnamon in it because cinnamon is a natural anti-inflammatory. And then clove is a natural antimicrobial. And I haven't had a UTI 10 years.
Oh, that's
if
amazing.
I've had any inkling of one, we make homemade. I have a juicer, so we make homemade fruit juice.
Cool.
And so we do everything natural, and we don't even own a microwave or anything like that.
Wow, that's amazing. I want to jump back to Luna with the question about how do you deal with, cathing and even if you don't cath, how do you manage your bowel and bladder? I apologize for missing you the first go around, but if you could answer that question.
You're fine. I'm patient. I also don't mind just being skipped. I am currently going through a UTI.
Oh.
And I had one 2 weeks ago, and I had another one 6 weeks ago. And I am listening to everyone, and I feel called out because I don't drink enough water and I don't irrigate my bladder, even though the urologist told me like 50 years ago too.
Right.
And that's just primarily because I have so much on my plate with so many other things, genuinely, not just even talking about kidney failure, but just other shit that it's just like, oh, I have to at the end of the day irrigate my bladder. I can barely crawl to the bed. Are you kidding me? Now I understand that I need to work on that. I'm not saying I'm not doing that, but it's kind of like the mindset when you are just so out of spoons by the end of the day. But yeah, I'm just called out as hell.
And we appreciate the transparency. You know what I mean? Like I think that's needed because I know, for me, in the beginning, they wouldn't allow me to drink anything. I had to eat like crushed ice and what have you. So like when I was able to drink like Capri Suns and Sprites and whatnot, I was like all game for it. I was just like, I don't care about anything. But after the experience of the high fevers, like Brandon alluded to, and John, it happens that way. But
I just one more thing.
No, please.
In the vein that y'all are just saying, I don't actually get fevers. My body responds differently. So for me to catch my infection before it's knocking on my door, my bladder and everything else is very difficult. I don't get fevers. By the time the infection is, it's already foul smelling urine and all of the other symptoms are already there, and you're like, cool. So I'm already having UTI. And then in 2020, I actually did get MRSA. I had 5 surgeries, and the 4 surgeries in November happened because my back surgery went bad, and they got MRSA in the bone fragments during my second spinal fusion. So yeah, I had MRSA. I had to be on just baclofen, not back, yeah, back. Oh my God, not baclofen. Y'all mentioned it, but I just did a bunch of antibiotics, and I was on it for a year. So that caused a lot of antibiotic resistance. So that's been great.
I see. Well, we
But that's
definitely rooting for you. Jason, how about yourself? How do you tap into the internet when it comes down to trying to find the data, and also just even about rehabbing? How has this, the access to information helped you?
As far as researching like facts about spinal cord injuries or different data like that, I got a book when I first got injured. It's called Yes, You Can. And it really broke down, from the bladder to the bowel to the spasms to the, everything pretty well. But one thing I will say is the community at large of people with spinal cord injuries, long before social media, well, I say long before, yeah, probably 5 years before anybody was even on anything, I had an email thread that I tapped into, and there were, oh my God, I don't know, probably 15 or 20 different people on there. Wow. And I was newly injured, but there were some in there that had like 30 years experience. So I tapped into that a lot. And now I find myself on, I don't go on Facebook very often, but when I do, I pay a lot of attention to Spinal Cord Injury USA. And I find that's a great way to be able to give feedback to people that are newly injured, and also to share information among those of us that go through things. So it's been, for me, more of a peer thing than it has like a research statistical thing.
Well, yeah, I like that. Like, the peer connections are essential. You need to be able to tap in and partner up with somebody who's going through a similar situation as you, or has been through it before. Tahira, how about yourself?
Here we go. I would say I use like all of the above. I will look it up on the internet. I'll try to think of someone who might know who has a similar injury. I used to ask the support group, but we haven't met again since COVID. But so I think I do both as far as going online and then also trying to find out from people I know. And also I do drink a lot of water. That's a good point. And that probably does help. But yeah, as far as the issues I get, also when I go to see, like when I get my catheter change, I'll ask a nurse about different things if they work with spinal cord injuries and, medical professionals. And so I kind of try to use all of the above.
So I'm just throwing this out there real quick. Did any of you guys, because we talked earlier about just being kind of like weirded out, or you just don't know how to approach maybe somebody that's going through something that's a little bit different. Did you guys ever feel like embarrassed to talk about these things, like to be able to actually get the knowledge and the information with regard to, okay, what happens if my condom leaks? How do I change? And I might have had like a bowel movement, and how do I do that quickly? Anybody how did you deal with like maybe a little bit of being embarrassed or shy about it?
I think when I first started playing wheelchair rugby within 6 months of my injury, the first like dinner or meal, or just with 6 or 7 quads, and all of a sudden they're just talking about how they empty their bladder. It's like, what? Just very quickly just becomes normal thing in any situation in public, and you just kind of, it happens once and it just never becomes like that.
I kind of lost all shame a long time ago, because growing up in the hospital, everybody sees your everything. And also my logic is, and I carry it to disability, but it's like, if I can't talk about my shits with my partner, then why do I have a partner or a friend? And if I can't talk about that with my disabled community, then the hell? Like, who else can I talk about it to? So I was like, I need to find better community of us disabled folks then, because if you can't seek that help and support from, I don't know, our peers, I just feel like that sucks. Essentially, it's time to find better friends in general. And I don't know. That's always been my view.
Definitely, it's about
I
No,
was
go ahead.
literally going to say the exact same thing after spending, 35, 36 days in ICU, and the amount of turnover that is in ICU, the people that have already seen everything that I have, like I lost humility real quick. And I'm also part of 2 or 3 different mentoring groups throughout the week. And yeah, we will literally sit there and eat and have a conversation about bowel programs at the exact same time. Like, and nothing even phases me when it comes to talking about it anymore. Like, absolutely no shame and no qualms about it.
I just want to add to what Brandon said about being in ICU, because I'll never forget I bring this up a lot too. They actually glued a tube to my anus. And when the nurse came in to shave, to glue this thing to my butthole, I was like, that's it. It's all off now. That's it. There can't be anything more that I have to be ashamed of, or anything more that anybody's going to see.
Okay, real quick then, I have to throw in my greatest ICU story real quick. So at the time of my injury, I was married, and my wife was sitting there, and I was there, the nurse was giving me a bed bath, and of course, like any person in that body was reacting the way a body reacts. And the nurse is just kind of flustered, and I was trached at the time, so I couldn't speak. And I asked to my wife, this is the closest I will ever get to a threesome. And she told the truth.
Oh
And
gosh,
that was the last I ever saw of the nurse.
that
I love it.
is hilarious. Listen, I mean, again, thank you guys for your very in-depth stories and experiences, and I'm quite sure we can go on for hours talking about these things. But again, people need to hear the gritty details of our shared experiences, right? And if we can't talk about it openly and normalize it in our communities abroad, how can we ever expect change? And sometimes change has to be put in a light where it may be uncomfortable for those who are in charge and those who make laws and legislation to be able to help us progress and get access to the things that we need and access to our community. And so it's one thing to talk about it, and it's another thing to start doing something that's more actionable. And so I just want John to talk about what we're trying to do here in Connecticut as it pertains to the type of medical equipment associated with wheelchairs. And John, I'll let you have it.
Sure, thanks. And I also just want to highlight, or unless Corey, you're going to do this afterwards, about the 3 United Spinal
Yeah, I was going to do
bills.
that at the end.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So at least here in Connecticut, we recently tried to pass a bill that was going to require timely repairs for the 2 major, for any multi-state wheelchair dealer operating in our state. So that would require them to come out within 3 days of a call to inspect the issue. It would require them to create a stakeholder group, half industry, half wheelchair consumers, and together figure out, okay, how long should it take for someone to come out to replace a flat tire? How long should it take for someone to come out and replace a broken wheel? How long should it take for someone to come out and fix an armrest? Or all the different components of the chairs, they have varying degrees of importance. Which are the things that we need to prioritize, and how can we make the law require things to happen more quickly? And acknowledging that the industry itself has commented on a lot of delays where people are waiting for months and months and months just to replace a caster. And part of it has to do with insurance reimbursements. The fact that you buy a wheelchair through a wheelchair dealer and through your insurance approves it. Your doctor writes a prescription for your wheelchair, but then every single time you need to replace a wheel, insurance asks, oh, wait, we need another prescription that you need your wheel fixed. It's very, very redundant process that that adds weeks and weeks to the whole repair issue when people forget to file paperwork, or there's just delays about this. So part of it is eliminating these kind of prior authorization requirements for insurance companies to speed up the process. The industry recognizes. And another thing is that insurance companies don't reimburse wheelchair dealers for the time it takes to travel to the consumer's home. So, they spend all day around driving, visiting people, but the companies themselves are only reimbursed for the time it takes to do the repair and the item that's being repaired. So with the example I mentioned earlier, if I just need a minor repair, like my bearings are dead, that costs $5, but it's like preventing my wheel from turning. It's like an important thing. Of course, they're going to want to replace the entire $2,000 wheel because that's how they get reimbursed. That's how they make their money's worth. But it's a very wasteful thing. And having private insurance, I would have to pay $1,000 deductible for something like that, right? So, so that was what our bill was trying to do, is create those timeline requirements and that stakeholder group, among other things. But it died. It got shut down and ran out of time in some legislative committee. So we're still moving forward. We're still trying to work and meet with the other side and try to get something passed this year or next year. But it's a struggle. But we're hoping that we're going to make progress, and hopefully we can do something that other states can emulate too. Because here's a crazy thing: in no state is there any time requirements for repairs. There's nothing on the books. We are all completely at the mercy of how the companies and the insurance companies run this process.
Thank you for explaining that, Bill, and enlightening us on the importance of advocacy and the importance of why we need to point out the elephant in the room. Right, at the end of the day, you may not be where we are currently, but the point is you could be there eventually, and you want certain measures to be in place to help you. And if it's not you, it could be a relative, it could be the child that you have, it could be your neighbor, it could be your friend that ends up becoming stricken with some type of illness, or a misfortunate event could occur, and now you could become that person's caregiver, and now you would turn to advocacy. So what we would like you all to know, and I'm going to paste this in the chat as well, that you can also be a part of changing this national kind of agenda that we want to do, right? So each of the questions that we talked about, they're also being fought and brought to legislators through United Spinal Association. So if you look in the chat, there is a link to the Action Center, which is found on unitedspinal.org, where you can contact your local congressman and local legislator and send out information to voice your opinion, voice why you need the elevator seat, as Jason talked about, because your cabinet may be high, and without the elevator lift on your seat, which is an extension of your arms, essentially, it raises you up to be able to get you where you need to be. Or you need the titanium chair because it's more durable. You may be going through some rough terrain and you don't want the aluminum one to break, right? So it's very vital that your voice is heard and you become a part of this wave of individuals as we try to enact change. And we may not get it overnight, and it may take years virtually to get these things in order, but it starts with us, and we can help the next generation of individuals who may be struggling with disabilities. And so, I opened up and I talked about the inequality in the cancer care for people with disabilities by Dr. Lisa Lazzoni. And one thing I wanted to emphasize is, and I want everybody to leave with this, is that all we're looking for, and I'm speaking to every legislator, every wheelchair powerhouse company, every veterans administration representative, is to know that allow disabled folks to be equal experts alongside of legislators, physicians, and communities as a whole and a collaborative effort to come up with laws, care plans, and barrier-free access that ensure comfort and safety to maximize the efficacy in the disabled community abroad. And that's all we really need. So again, everyone, thank you for your participation in our More Than Walking video podcast discussion. Please stay tuned in and join us next month and sign up for the More Than Walking newsletter at morethanwalking.com to learn about the topic we will cover next. And until next time, remain encouraged, stay hopeful, and above all else, please be aware.
Thank you. Thanks, you guys.